ese caminadito y ese lindo cuerpecito frazado de bolique.
This ad is brought to you. There's no ad. We don't have a sponsor yet. Don't be a dummy. Get a sponsor. Hello, welcome to From Louisville to the World, and I'm your one of your hosts, Alexander Campbell, and we have Karma.
King Dadu.
King Dadu. Are you Queen Karma?
Just Karma.
Okay. Karma Chameleon?
Karma says enough.
We come and go. But we have, we're definitely recording at a different time and a different day from our last podcast. But we have a wonderful two guests, two great poets and stage performers in the city of Louisville, here for the world. Matthew Presley and Mama Maree. Hello. And Mama Maree. Pronounce your last name?
Ecrevan.
What the heritage is that?
French.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Huh. Is it Huguenot, Acadian? What?
Well, I actually made it up.
Okay.
Well, I went to the library, and if you ever took Spanish in school, and escribe means the writer in
yes,
Spanish.
Yes, it does.
And Ecrevan means the writer in French.
Huh, did not know that.
So I adapted that from the word the writer, and that's why my name is Ecrevan.
Yes. I love you. I'm not just saying this, but you really are one of my favorite spoken word artists in Louisville, and to me, to interview you and to get to talk to you about it, and all of us, and Karma and Dadu will understand why. You're like one of my top guests in my mind that I wanted to get on this program, because at Church on the Rocks there was an open mic called Church on the Rocks, founded by a local a lesbian folk singer duo, Troubadours of the Divine Bliss, in the city of Louisville, and it was a great open mic at one time, wonderful open mic.
It was.
About this. My podcast is actually kind of a reflection of that, community, unity, and the other thing that rhymes with unity. But we
want to go ahead and get started.
We are starting. We've started.
Well, I exactly want to know, I apologize, but I haven't read any of your stuff, but I am very interested.
It's not out there. That's why I need to do what Matthew's done and put out a chapbook. Because people have asked me, where can I get your stuff? And I say, you can't.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's sad, but true.
Well, how did you get started into this?
I started writing when I was in my late teens. I just wrote about just about anything. And it refined over the years. Now when I look at the old stuff, I laugh a lot because it's pretty bad.
Neither good nor bad, but thinking makes it so.
Everybody has to start somewhere.
That's bad.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But words, I just love words. And I don't know why I haven't written in over a year, but I don't question it because it's either there or it's not. I'm not the kind of...
well, it's a new moon today, so...
I'm not the kind of writer that's, able to put aside 30 minutes to write. I'm not like that. The words come and then I write them down. So...
When I was talking about the Church on the Rocks, it's because I used to look... You were one of the few acts that I looked forward to. I used to look forward to. My favorite ancient Roman poet is Catullus. And there's something about you. I don't know if you're familiar with Catullus or not.
Not at all.
But there's just something about the way you read your poetry, and there's something about your poetic style that is very similar to his. You know, it's just like, it's very blunt. It's kind of salty. It's full of double entendres. You say what you think. You know, you've lived life. You should read him. You should look him up. Yeah.
I think I will.
Yeah. But not only are you a poet, but also what you are fascinating, not just because you're a New Yorker, and we all know from the rest of the world that all New Yorkers are fascinating. You know, we've been told that on TV and radio and movies all our lives. But no, you are a pioneer in terms of being an LGBT activist.
Yeah, you could say that.
But you've been like, you've been, when did you come out? How many, it's been decades ago, right?
Yeah, 19.
Wow. How many decades
19.
ago back was that?
Oh, about
50.
6.
Wow.
I'm 72.
Wow. That's just, and did you ever think that we in the United States would get to this point? Did you ever think we would ever see, we'll talk about what you've been through a bit, but like the gay marriage being legalized?
I didn't give it much thought.
Right. It was just a pie in the sky pipe dream.
I really had no aspirations toward marrying, another female. I didn't see it as a necessity, really, but I think it's wonderful. There's a lot to be done yet. We're not anywhere near the acceptance that should accompany these laws. Obviously, this woman went to jail because she wouldn't give people their marriage licenses, and she should have gone to jail. And she
in Kentucky, Kim Davis.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
but I'll put it this way: I have 2 friends, and they're both deceased now, but they were together for 26 years, and they thought they did everything right. Their incomes, they got insurance, they got everything they thought would cover them till they died. And when one of them died, the other one had to pay a $25,000 inheritance fee. And the only way she could get around it is if her partner had adopted her as her child.
Wow.
That's fucked up. That is screwed up.
No kidding.
And things like that, we're eons away from where we need to be. So,
Yeah, you're
a
right.
marriage license is one thing, but to be able to pull a stunt like that and charge my friend $25,000 just to inherit her lover's money was crazy. And that's still going on, so we've got a long way to go.
I remember at Church on the Rocks, where everyone is welcome, heterosexuals such as myself and everybody, and you, heterosexuals such as yourself, and everybody. It's like that dude's, USK hip hop. There was a Church on the Rocks 3 years ago where you were talking about something like very personal. It touched me. That you're talking about like what it was like in 1961 in New York. You witnessed, police coming in and arresting and brutality and
my, yes.
all that.
I missed going to prison by minutes. They came in, we were at a bar in New York, and they came in and raided it, and I happened to be on the next floor in the women's bathroom. And they hauled everybody out. And what they would do is they would put you in jail, and the next day in the newspaper, your name and occupation would be printed. And it was almost comical because you would see Johnny so-and-so, hairdresser, Tony so-and-so, hairdresser, Marie Martin, dog groomer.
Yeah. Where do
I mean, these were the kind of occupations we had.
these were code terms, right? They're
Oh, these were real.
the real occupation.
Oh, yeah, right.
Huh.
And and I happened to be in the bathroom, and I missed it. I got left behind.
So
It was
So, lesbians tended to be, I mean, this might be a dumb question, and I could be way off here, but, so the lesbians tended to be dog groomers and gay men tended to be hairdressers. I know the latter. And that's where
that's one of the
many.
most popular
Right.
things. But,
And not just a stereotype?
no.
Right.
And it was brutal. I mean, it wasn't enough to lock you up and put you in jail just because you were dancing with someone.
Right.
It wasn't enough, They had to put you out there in the newspaper and
Humiliation.
yeah.
Yes. Control.
It's
In this
terrible.
nation.
Yep.
Ooh, we're mad.
I don't know if that time I was talking about the time I had the car accident. I might have been talking about that time when I lived with my last boyfriend, so to speak. And my girlfriend wasn't there because she worked, but a friend from the city was there, and she was sleeping, and 2 young girls had been hanging out, and one of them needed to be home before her mom got home from work because her mother worked nights. So I said to Bobby, I said, can I use your car to take her home? And he was half asleep and half high, and he said, yeah, and he handed me the keys. I took her home, and I got in an accident. His brakes were messed up, and I hit a car. And I made sure that people in the other car were okay, and I hitchhiked back to the house, to my house, my mother's house, to find my driver's license. Ran in the house and said, Ma, I need my driver's license. I had an accident. Help me out. I got my driver's license. I went back, and I got back just the same time the police arrived there. And I had my license, so I was covered. The registration, I wasn't sure. I said, I think it's in the glove box. I said, this isn't my car. Then they started asking questions. And I asked the 2 girls how old they were and where they'd been all night. And they were teenagers. And they had been there all night. And then they asked them, did they do drugs and all this stuff. Next thing you know, I was arrested. Well, I wasn't arrested at that moment. They wanted Bobby, so they made me take them to the apartment, unlock the door, and go in. Oh, by the way, when I went back to get my keys, my license, I stopped by there real quick and told him what happened. And he said, well, I'm going to tell him that you stole the car because it wasn't registered. And I said, oh, yeah? Okay. So when they brought me there, I unlocked the door, and we went in, and I saw him hiding behind the door. So I said, there he is, to the police. And, he got locked up because he was older than the rest of us, and I got locked up. My friend who had been sleeping through this whole thing got locked up, and my girlfriend, who was at work, came down to the police station to check on us, and they locked her up.
Wow.
Can you believe it? In the United States of America?
Simply because she had been there that evening. So the 4 of us went to jail, and my ex-girlfriend's parents were Italian imports, so that was fun. Having them in court and hearing words like, that we were lesbians and that we coerced these kids into taking drugs and having sex, and it was all not true, none of it. And the only thing that got us off, or me off, they were about to take me to jail. And my one friend, she gave up 2 rings to get me bonded out, but the judge asked the mother of the girls, one of the girls, do you have any control over your daughter? And she said no. She stays out all night, and she doesn't listen, and she takes drugs. And that, along with the fact that I got bailed out and saved my butt, and the charges ended up being dismissed. But that's how it was then. And they could never get away with that now. No way. And
Well, I'd love to, I want you to talk about your activism more because, just by being open in what you did was being activist because my mother, even in the 1980s and in the 70s, she was too afraid to come out, and I don't think she ever came out, even though she had her affairs.
mine either.
Yeah, and
mine didn't have affairs.
Yeah,
She just was latent.
she was. But I don't know about your mother, but it drove her insane, literally. She's because if you can't be who you are and you have to pretend to lie because you're afraid your family is going to hate you and get rid of you and your friends are going to hate you and get rid of you because you can't be who you are, it does something to you. It warps you. It does something to your personality, and that's exactly what happened to my mother. And I don't know where she is. She's somewhere in a mental institution, I assume. But I mean. And I had a friend who she didn't go crazy, who had a mother, but it was similar, but she didn't go crazy. She just got depressed and drank because you're sitting on that fire. But I bet you had friends with similar experiences, right?
Yeah, sure. And that brings us to that nasty word choice.
Yeah.
Because who would choose to be ostracized by their family, to be, locked up for being in a bar having a drink, for being locked up for having an innocent car accident? I mean, who would choose this? And I've had this discussion, argument, whatever you want to call it, with so many people about the idea of choice. I have a friend who used to be my boss, and she's a very devout Christian. She has a brother who's gay who she denounces, and she loves me because we broke through. We had a breakthrough, and we're very good friends. And she, we get to certain subjects, and we'd have to just agree that we disagreed. Because I said, there's nothing to do with choice. I really believe there's a gene. I think that I worry about them proving it.
Do you know about Kelly Harrell? You know who Kelly Harrell is?
No.
In fact, some people think Kelly Harrell is the first modern day first country music singer ever. He recorded in the mid-20s, in the late 20s. And he was from Western Virginia, and his best hit, what we know him for today, is the New River Train. He was the guy who originally sang, and I don't know if he wrote it, but he's the guy who made the New River Train famous. But the reason why I'm bringing him up, because if you listen to his songs, I originally got an album for someone else, about someone else I wanted, a blues guitarist by the name of Frank Hutchison, but they had a white blues guitarist, but he had the complete Kelly Harrell soundtrack, every song he recorded. And if you listen to it in order, I mean, you can tell he's a closeted gay man, and he's trying to, and there are times in those recordings, they slip up. And those recordings, you can only get, it's so interesting because in those recordings, you can only get them through European imports. You can't get them through, American. And I've looked it up online, and everyone who has heard it thinks the same thing. In fact, it's the only old-timey song recorded in the 20s where you have a song where a man kisses another man. And there are times where he slips up, where he says, he always calls himself a girl. And in his songs, he's always talking to himself as he's a girl. And in one song, he says he's shaving, and he still calls himself a girl. So, but anyway, I thought you would appreciate that. Kelly Harrell.
I've never heard of him.
Yeah. Yeah, but let's kind of change the topic here and
Okay.
talk about your poetry. I mean, I'm sure Dadu and Karma. Let's give them some. I'm sure they got some things they want to ask Mama
I'm
Marie.
very curious. I do want to hear a little bit of your poetry, but
Okay.
it came to my attention that you've only had the education up to 9th grade.
What?
Is that
I quit
correct?
high school in my junior year,
Junior year. Goodness sakes.
and I was told by my grade advisor I'd never get to work at the phone company because that was an aspiration I had. And the next year I was working at the phone company. So,
Prove them wrong. Prove them wrong.
yeah, I quit because I was helping support my family, and I hated typing, and that was my first period subject, and I just got to the point where I had my mom waking me up in time for my second period. She didn't even know I dropped it. Even
Wow.
my teacher didn't know. She ran into me 4 or 5 months later and said, "I thought you moved." And I said, "I did. I moved away from your class." No, but I quit high school, and I was told I would never make anything of myself. And
My dad had a similar. My dad was always straight, but he's had a similar. 10th grade for him. Yeah.
You got into poetry when?
excuse me,
You got into poetry when?
around that time, actually, yeah, I started writing around 17, 16.
They told you weren't gonna be nobody. Got you inspired, right?
I
Yeah,
used to
yeah.
write and rhyme always,
Right.
and then things changed, and it became more to do with life than rhyming, and my whole demeanor of poetry changed, and it got better as far as I was concerned.
Right.
But I keep some of it, and there's one piece that I looked for that I don't have because I couldn't find it, but it was called The Mirror, and I wrote it when I was 16, and people had a hard time believing that I wrote that young because it was full of wisdom about people, how they treat each other and stuff, but and then I started writing about all sorts of things, life situations, people. I love to write about people.
What? Yeah. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, that's all right. I didn't have it. I wasn't going anywhere from there.
What are your like published works? Have you published there's something called the Women's Writers Journal.
Oh, woman rights, yeah.
Right.
I'm published several times because we did an anthology every year.
Okay.
So I'm published a lot in the anthologies. I'm published once in Sinister Wisdom, and it's a piece about incest.
Wow.
It's called Grandmother's Bed, and it's a story, a poem about my brother. He passed away last November, but there was 7 years of abuse that I forgave him for. A lot of people don't understand that. I've spoken to women that have had incest issues, and when you say the word forgive, they just don't get it. And I said, well, you won't get it because you need support. I said it takes years of support to understand what forgiveness is, and a lot of people think if you forgive, you're saying what you did was okay and now it's past, and that's not it at all. You're freeing yourself.
Exactly.
You're letting
Exactly.
go, and I could have let him. I could have hated him for the rest of our lives and been miserable, but I didn't. I actually confronted him for the first time. We were out on a fishing trip, actually, and we were sitting on the boat, and the seats faced the water, and I just, out of nowhere, came up with and said, are we going to talk about what you did to me, or am I going to hate you for the rest of our lives? And he just was stunned, and he just said, I want to talk about it. My brother happened to be illiterate, by the way, and that's a big part of this. And I told him, okay, I'll call you. And I took control. That was a biggie. I told him, I'll call you at 7:30 tomorrow night, and And I called a half hour late on purpose, just to keep him squirming. And we talked, and I said to him, by the end of this conversation, if I believe you regret what you did, you'll be forgiven and you'll have a sister. If I don't, then you won't. And he kept trying to change, trying to shift off the subject. Like he said to me, my son did the same thing to my daughter. Why do you think that? I said, listen, if you want answers to questions like that, you need to go to therapy. I'm not here to be a therapist. We're here to talk about what you did, and we got through it. He said he was sorry, and he was sincerely sorry, and I believed him.
Here's something. I've listened to your poetry many times, and I'm hearing this story. I didn't realize that, and my heart goes out to you. But you have a healthy attitude towards sex, and you celebrate sex in your poetry. How are you able to? Some people don't recover from that who've been through those experiences. But you have. Was it because of writing poetry? Is that what helped you through it? Your catharsis?
It was. It was that, and also the support. Because I go to this writers' conference. The writers' conference has been going on for 40 years. A bunch of women in the Atlanta area said, let's have a writers' conference, a lesbian writers' conference. And there was about a dozen women involved. And that was in 1979.
The year I was born.
And it's still going on today. And, in fact, I'm going in October. We have it twice a year now. I'm going to the fall meet. And we used to have incest affinity groups, which amazingly have decreased to where we almost don't have any anymore because it's so out from under the rug, so to speak. And one woman came to one time and she says, I don't know why I'm here. I just felt like I needed to come. And she was at that affinity group, and by the time it was over, she had a body memory. And it came to her that her father had sexually abused her, and she never knew until that meeting.
Wow.
So that's how it works sometimes. And like I said, the forgiveness factor, it's letting yourself out of a cage. And there's nothing like it. And the support, the women who come and they wrap their arms around you and they say, you're the innocent here, and you have to come to believe that because you blame yourself. A lot of one of the horrible things that happens is you take on this guilt because you're certain that it was something you did that brought this about. And then the second thing was my mother was a single parent, and I was protecting her from the truth of her son doing this. What mother wants to come to terms with the fact that her son is abusing her daughter? And so I did this to protect her. Kept the secret. I did it to protect my sisters because I didn't trust him with them, although my one sister who passed away would have killed him, and that would have been that, and my other sister was tough too. But I took it all on myself, every bit of it, and so letting go, that forgiveness, it's like I was a new woman. I was a freed woman. And,
I would imagine.
And I do all I can to get that out there to people, to women who have experienced this. Like I said, these two women, they ran a bookstore here for a short time, and they said forgiveness, and I tried to explain to them that you're not saying it's okay. You're not letting him off the hook. Believe me, Because my brother, everything he touched turned to shit. I mean, his family, his jobs, everything. I mean, he just went downhill and he never came back up. He never drove a car.
Neither do I. Hope that's not a sign.
No, but I'm just saying that normal things like that. But and he died with his sins, you know, and I just wish that more females, more women and girls could get to that point of forgiveness, you know. But a lot of these kids are children, so they have no clue, you know. A friend of mine, her niece was abused by her grandfather, and they charged him, and he went to court and he went to prison in his 70s. And I just couldn't be happier that happened, because that doesn't happen. That is so rare. And it's one of the Troubadours, and they have a new album out, and there's a song on it called Walking Wounded. And if someone gets their new album, listen to that song.
I will do that.
Listen to that song. Because it's all about that child and what she went through.
Wow. I didn't know they went through that.
Mm-hmm. So, yep.
That's...
and it's still happening, and it's never going to not happen, and I don't know.
I have like a tear that wants to escape, and it's not quite escaping, but...
I understand.
I'm interested in hearing some of this poetry.
Yeah.
I got some understanding where it comes from.
Right.
And who wrote it.
Yeah.
Sure. See, I got one short one I can read about depression. That, find it in here. Well, these are songs. I don't want songs. Talk among yourselves.
Right.
This dead air is brought to you by Donald Trump, hot air.
I have it here. I'll come up with it.
Okay.
These are songs.
How are you, Matthew?
I'm doing well.
Good.
Yeah. Enjoying hearing about some of the things that Maree was talking about that I haven't heard from her during the open mic. She's talked a lot about things of that nature, but some of the specifics I'm only just now hearing. Fascinating.
Yeah, a lot of times you don't hear why people are at the point that they are now. And it's just so interesting. We're all just sitting here just watching her and listening like children.
Oh, you're crying, sweet Karma.
I bet you it's in one of the books. That's probably why I can't find it. Yeah, it's in here.
Do I need to get you a tissue, Karma?
I think I have it. I have it.
My mask holds my tears.
All right, this is called Living Will.
You see why I wanted her on this podcast. She's just a wonderful human being, wonderful soul. Got to get her back out again, hopefully.
Thank you. Living Will. There is music, but nobody wants to hear this dirge sung in B flat. Forget your negative G's. Here is a single-engine plane flying without power, or a navigator spiraling through a mass of clouds called depression. Depression is a dance that's harder and more passionate than a tango, because it is a dance of one. It's living against your will, though not as alarming as it sounds. Living against one's will encompasses nearly everything that's stuffed into that life. It's working, eating, sleeping, going, coming, breathing, probably in that order. Some choose therapy, some drugs. Some wallow chanting a mantra, this too shall pass, and pray the passing comes, before the passing.
Wow.
That's nice.
Wow, that's beautiful.
Snap my finger.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So,
Do you have just like a quick of your to change the mood a bit? But do you have a quick double and one of your wonderful double entendre poems? Unless you don't want to read them, I don't.
no, I
Maybe you had something else you wanted to read.
Which one? What? She's telling me to read that? Yeah. Are you serious?
No.
No.
Just kidding.
Anyway, Dave, look, this is a podcast. It isn't radio. You can fucking swear. You can say shit, cunt, whatever you want.
No, I know that, but that's not the one I'm going to read.
Okay,
This one
sure.
I'd rather read. I was born on a Sunday, so this is called Sunday's Child. She is Sunday's child, born on somebody's Sabbath, found winging on an amazing journey through incredible light and the darkest of holes. Antiquity's tarnish scrapes her edges now, assaulting a child's heart into confinement where even the windows are tinted gray to keep out the brightness. But what she sees is enough, old women dragging sacks filled with unfilled dreams, and children with eyes that sparkle with endless hope. A warm day in winter feeds into the deception that the cold will not return. People shed their heavies, show their skins, but not her. She bundles up in her woolies. She stands at the water's edge, watches the ripples glinting faux diamonds in the mercury sun, knowing the eternal chill waits just beyond the sunset.
That's
Does that have entendres? I don't know what an entendre is.
Yo, you have them. Believe me, you have them. You may have invented them and not realized it.
I'm not sure what an entendre is.
Similar to a pun. Kind of means more than one.
It's a sexual.
Means
Yeah.
more than
Yeah.
one thing at the same time.
But it's
I
sexual.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, double entendre. I know what that means, really.
Of course you did. I knew it.
I was going to read poetry, but I found a piece, which I don't mean to read it right now, but I found a piece that
You can if you wish.
I felt was very important.
Well, why don't you read that?
Okay. And this has entendres of its own, that I didn't have to come up with. It's a short story. It's not an actual poem, but it's true. And it's called In Contrast. And it's in 2 parts. I need a drink.
This drink of water is brought to you by Life. Oxygen and hydrogen.
Although Nestle would claim differently.
This is a true story that happened at my writers' conference about 10 years ago. It's hard to know exactly where to start this story or how to make the points necessary to get it told. Sorry. I am a poet, so this is truly mixing the medias for me. But this is an important story that should be told, so I'm going to do my best. I guess I'll start in the early spring of 1990. My condition of psoriasis had progressed to a point where I agreed with my physician to try a course of intense treatment called PUVA. It is actually photochemotherapy. I would take a drug called oxorolin, which I was told was derived from a substance found in the jungles of South America. I would take 2 pills 1 hour before entering a chamber, naked, except for eye protection, and standing in the middle of a circular bank of vertical ultraviolet lamps for a set of amount of time. Afterwards, I would have to protect my eyes and any exposed skin from sunlight or even indoor fluorescent lights for several hours because this drug magnified the UV rays effects times 100. That meant wearing bulky, dark goggles even at work. As a result of these treatments, my skin became very dark. I normally have olive skin and tan deeply in the summer, but it was early spring, and I had already had a deep brown tan. In early June, I made my annual trip to Woman Rights, my writers' conference, something I planned for and looked forward to all year. To me, it was 4 days of revisiting my tribe, touching the spirit and those of my woman rights sisters. To me, it was acknowledging and nurturing the gifts of laying pens on paper and marveling at the results of outpourings of our very souls. 1990 would be the year when all the joys and realism of woman rights would be tested beyond belief. It was the year of the incident at the gate that was still being disputed as to what actually happened. It's been referred to as the racist incident and the rush to judgment. It's been referred to as the panic situation and the intrusion. It's been called all of the above. It was also an unusual year in that there were approximately 10% of women of color in attendance as opposed to the usual 0 to 1%. It was a year a few of the neighborhood's residents who happened to be black approached the gate. I got to say on the side, the campground where we have our conference is in a very poor black neighborhood. So I said, okay, approach the gate. From there, it's foggy as to what actually happened. What was clear was that it turned out to be teenage boys. What was also clear was that everyone was on edge because of what happened the night before. A man came onto the land, entered one of the more remote cabins, and exposed himself to 2 women who were alone in the cabin making love. But now it was Saturday evening, and the women were settling in, waiting for the readings to begin. Suddenly, the security foghorn sounded in a steady blare. Women rushed unmasked toward the gate. A couple of women carried sticks. What followed was confusion, judgments clouded by fear, and a breakdown of communication and trust. Everyone was upset. Everyone took a defensive side. There were some who defended the security woman. Others thought she panicked and that it should have been handled quietly. And the women of color called it racism. One thing was clear on all sides. Everyone wanted to know what happened and how best to deal with it. The women of color made a decision to meet together and caucus. The coordinators and others did the same. It was agreed that later there would be a town meeting so all could be heard. To my surprise, I was approached by one of the black women and asked, "Do you identify as a woman of color?" I said no, but thank you for asking. That invitation was among the first of many efforts that followed to heal the wound that a decade later has yet to close. 2. Sunday, after an exhausting closing circle, it was time to leave. I was riding back to Louisville with Pam. Mary B.J. was driving alone with her to her home in rural Tennessee. We decided to caravan with Mary as far as Chattanooga, where the interstates split east and west. A couple of hours into the trip, I noticed Mary signaling us to pull over. I couldn't imagine why, but I hoped it wasn't car trouble. Pam and I pulled up behind her on the shoulder and waited for her to approach, and Pam rolled down the window. Mary said, "How would you like to have your cards read?" "Our cards read?" Pam repeated. Yes, she said, I know a woman in this area. She's really good. I urged, yes, come on, Pam, let's do it. Pam readily agreed, and we followed Mary to the next exit, where we got back onto I-65, one exit to Coffeyville, Tennessee. Just off the exit, Mary was signaling us again to stop into a shop and go. We stopped and got out. Mary informed us that we needed to each buy a deck of cards. Mary, the reader's name, doesn't use her own cards. We had to have our own. So the three of us bought a deck of cards, and Pam and I proceeded to follow Mary from there. It wasn't long before she signaled and turned left from a state road onto a one-lane dirt road. About half a mile later, we were there. We parked and got out, and the three of us approached the house with Mary in the lead. She knocked. A middle-aged man answered. Mary recognized the man as the card reader's husband and said, "Is Mary here? We'd like a reading." He said, "Just a moment," and he closed the door. A moment later, he returned and said sharply, "She doesn't do readings on Sunday." Surprised, Mary said, "Okay, then." He closed the door. As we were turning to leave, the door opened again, and it was Mary. She looked out at us and called back to her husband, "They're all right." We stared back toward her. She looked at us again and said, "No, he's right. I don't do readings on Sunday. Sorry," and closed the door. Bewildered, we returned to our cars. Mary B.J. assured us that she would call Mary when she got home and find out what that was all about, and we left. Once in the car, Pam asked me, "Did you hear what that woman said?" I said, "Yes." She said, "They're all right." Pam said, "No, she didn't. She said they're all white." "Whoa," was all I could utter. Pam called me the next day to say that Mary B.J. had spoken to Mary on the phone. She had been told that she was threatened by the KKK on numerous occasions to burn them out if they didn't stop doing readings for blacks in her home. She also told Mary about once a month she would go into the black communities to do readings. Those two experiences of both inclusion and exclusion resulted from my having been mistaken for a woman of color. I'm still examining the feelings I took away from each. I also feel a sense of shame, not for being white, but for some who act on the belief that whiteness comes with some sort of inherent privilege. What's also inherent, however, is racism itself. We must challenge ourselves to resist these both in attitude and in deed.
All right, let's switch into our round-robin roundup quickly. Do you have, or...
If there is one thing in your life, you said 72 years?
Yeah.
That you could change, what would it be?
Wow.
Huh.
Deep.
Philosopher Carm?
Well, I mean, just with everything that she said. I mean,
Yeah.
What else could I ask?
This might surprise you, but I would have a home. I feel as though I've never had a home. I've had a home, a house, I've had a family, I've had
Place to live.
Right.
place to live, all that goes with that. But I feel like I've never had a home. And
that feels.
it has to do with the grief of being deserted by our father, the disappointments, that my mother had given up, kind of, and you know, didn't have the life she should have as far as quality, and that encompasses the whole idea of a home, meaning, you know, happiness and harmony and all that. So
Security.
that's my answer.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, I just want to quickly. I think I would like to end on that, but I can't. This is probably where we should end. But there is something in your bio that you know, with regard to these keywords quickly. You know, midways, carnivals, New Orleans, hospital rooms. You know, what Georgia retreats. What does that all mean? I mean,
that's my life.
Yeah.
Say them again.
Traveling, midways, carnivals, New Orleans, hospital rooms, Georgia retreats.
Yeah.
You still do the latter?
Yeah. I went to Georgia for the first time in 8 years to my conference, and it was a nightmare because I found out I can't drive 800 miles anymore. And I had a really hard time driving and freaked my niece out really bad. She'd say, Nanny,
Nikki.
You don't know how close.
Oh, here comes Nikki.
I love you. I gotta go to work.
I'll go.
Okay.
All right. You don't know how close you came to that semi, and I'd say, oh, I'm sorry, and I couldn't stay on the road. And Nikki left work on a Saturday night and drove to Georgia so that she could take Angel home in her van and caravan with me. So I can't drive there anymore, but I will be driven there, but I won't stop going. And midways, that has to do with my sister. My sister worked at Coney Island at Rockaway's Playland, and she was a barker.
That's where you're from, Rockaway, New York?
Yes.
Okay.
And she was a barker, and she would work 16-hour shifts, calling in, people to throw their nickels on the nickel pitch, and what were the others?
New Orleans.
New Orleans. I don't know. I went to New Orleans once.
That was listed as a key thing, but
I don't know why.
Hospital rooms.
Beads.
Huh?
Bring
Any beads?
Oh, beads, yeah.
Bring back any beads.
Hospitals. My entire life, my entire career was around hospitals. I was a unit coordinator, and so a lot of my life revolves around hospitals, and so I finally they fired me, so I retired.
That's been a very deep interview. Thank you, Mama Maree. Wow, I'm so glad. Pioneer, activist, poet, survivor.
Can I tell you one quick thing about the activist thing? Because I don't think that I really talked to you about that.
Okay, sure.
But I was at the alternative bar one night when it was still open, and there was a young girl in there, a woman, and I recognized her because she used to come to Mother's Brew, which was the first gay bar, woman's bar I'd been to here.
Right.
And it was a private club. They organized it so that that's how they kept only women.
Right.
And this young girl was at the alternative, and she said to me, I know you. You wrote a book. And I said, well, I didn't write a book, but I've written in books. And she said, you changed the history of women. And she was drunk as a skunk. And I said, what are you talking about? And she says, that time when you got locked up. And you see, I wrote a story about that. I wrote it in pieces in a publication that came out once a month. And I wrote that story, and she said, and you went to jail. And she said, and they locked you up. And she said, and they'd never get away with that shit today.
Huh.
And she said, and you paved the way for us, young dykes. You know, you're a hero. I remember you. And this kid had it all down like she had written it down. And she was drunk then, and she was drunk now. And she used to get into this brew underage. You know, she
Right.
used to sneak in there. But she remembered me. And she said, you paved the way for all of us young lesbians. And they would never get away with that today.
Huh.
And it was like, holy cow.
Right.
Could not believe that there was this kid talking to me about that incident.
I just love watching Karma, listen to Mama Maree. You know, she's just really into it, you know, beaming over there.
Reminds me of my grandparents, you know, just sitting and just hearing story after story after story. Just so much information. That's awesome.
Well, that's all. I just had to throw that in.
Well, I feel so insensitive to say we need to go into our second ad, but we're gonna
Go.
of
El tremendo y el Boris. Ella está clara de que ella sofoca con ese caminadito y ese lindo cuerpecito frazado de bonito.
we want more entertainment. Okay, sure.
We can edit this out.
Well, anyway, as I said, this podcast was brought to you by no ads, and it still is. And you're a dummy if you have no ads. But let's just get right into our second guest, the wonderful Matthew Presley.
Thank you.
Yay.
What I love about Matthew, he's such a good man, and he's so mild-mannered. And I always, you know, if I could cast Survivor, I would put Matthew on there because he's got such no, seriously, because he's got such a low key personality. He observes, and he would be so great in those interview segments, you know, where they're interview how Survivor is going on. But you know, I consider Matthew to be, in my opinion, he's one of the central poetry people of Louisville because he's such
thank you.
No, you really are a nucleus because you're a connector. You know, you connect people out. You know, they're you know, you're not the only one, but I think you're one of the main ones, in my opinion.
True. I mean, when I do see people that have complementary talents, I do like to try to get them to meet.
Yeah.
You know, whether they be singers, songwriters, poets, or what have you. I'll often go around town to different open mics and you know, recommend certain things. And
It's all about networking, brother. Right, Dadu?
Exactly.
Yep.
right.
But you wouldn't last long on Survivor.
Yeah, I don't think not.
You're too
I
sweet.
don't think so.
I'll take you to the final two, and I'll win the $1 million.
You're too sweet.
You'll be my goat.
Where are you from, Matthew?
I'm actually from here in Louisville.
Okay, native.
Yep. Been here for 36, almost 37 years. It's about as long as I've been alive. So, yeah.
Why are you known as the Bard in Blue? Where
Well,
did that come from? I know you like to dress in blue, but is it just as simple as that?
Well, yeah, kind of, sort of. I guess probably in part comes from one of my favorite video games, Mega Man. So, you know, you're always dressed in blue, and it's like, yeah, well, why not? But, you know, when I started going to the Church on the Rocks open mic, which back in late 2006, early 2007, started up at the Hideaway.
That's a local bar in Louisville.
Yeah, on
Yep.
on Bardstown Road. Yeah, I started reading poetry there on a regular basis after the Troubadours of Divine Bliss had played their music at Unity of Louisville, where I go to church, and then I ended up later writing a poem for them, and so they invited me to this open mic, and well, I started wearing a hat because, well, I mean, people around the Troubadours do sometimes tend to wear funny hats, and Jen Rose Fitzgerald called me
especially them.
Yeah. Jen Rose Fitzgerald called me the blue-headed bard, and or, well, it might have been the Troubadours, but I think it was in a Facebook post that Jen Rose called me Bard in Blue, and somehow that just stuck.
All right. Now, you don't have to answer this if you don't want to, but, about the wearing the hat, I saw a picture of you on Facebook the other day where you had unleashed your hat.
Oh, yes.
And the process of aging there. But when I first met you, though, you had all your hair. You still have most of your hair, but it's yeah,
I don't know.
What it is.
Growing older, it happens.
I never thought that'd happen to you. But.
Yeah, I'm just kind of like Picard from Star Trek Next Generation. Baldly go where no one has gone before.
Baldly go, yeah. Now, you play the flute.
Well, it's not really not the metallic kind. It's
Native American?
Native American styled wooden flute.
Do you have Native American heritage?
Partially.
Okay.
I mean, it's somewhere down the line in the family tree on both branches. I mean, I don't know specific tribes or anything like that, but apparently great-great-great-grandparents had...
Cherokee?
I don't know, but...
I'm just thinking of regionally.
It's a touchy subject.
I think one of my dad's great-grandmothers or something like that might have been part of the Blackfoot tribe originally, but I don't really know for sure in full detail or anything like that. But, it wouldn't surprise me.
Do you have any? I would.
No, you don't want that on here.
As far as your poetry, do you read it at certain places? Or I know you said you go to a lot of open mics.
Yes. There was, like we said, Church on the Rocks, which sadly doesn't happen as an open mic anymore. But Alana Fugit has a open mic at Diorio's now every Monday night.
Local pizza place. Great pizza.
Yep, on Baxter Avenue, just north of Molly Malone's.
Expensive, but it may be haunted. Go ahead.
So I've heard, but I haven't felt anything odd going on there. So
I had a real good experience there.
You've been there? Good.
Yeah, and
cool.
I sing a little.
Good.
And I don't want to take his time, but the waitress came to me afterwards and asked me if I would open for her band.
Awesome.
Wow.
And I said, but I read the words off paper and I sing a cappella. And she said, that's all the better. But it turned out that the date of the gig was the same date of my writers' conference last year.
Deal breaker.
So I didn't go.
What was the name of the band?
I don't even know. But that shocked me. It was like, whoa. Felt good,
Go ahead, Matthew. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
As for other open mics, Jimmy Bessick used to have one at a place called Skull Alley before it turned into Uncle Slayton's and now is something else. And Divinity Rose had several open mics in several places like Zazu's, Diamonds, and Carly Ray's.
Carly Ray's.
Yeah.
Right.
And let's see. Sean Gabriel Pearson used to have an open mic at Diamonds on Barrett Avenue that was called Louisville Arts Live. So
Pure.
If someone from the other side of the world ever gets to hear this podcast, they may not recognize or care about the local locations, but I hope it entices them to come here.
Right, and lately a lot of venues have been closing here in Louisville, like
Rudyard Kipling.
Yeah, the Rudyard Kipling, Phoenix Hill Tavern. Carly Ray's is closed, and
It's open.
Jim Porter's.
It's open as something.
Really?
Collie Race.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
And last time I drove past there a few days ago, it didn't look like anything was there.
Oh,
I
well.
don't know of what, but it's open.
Maybe it's closed again.
Yeah,
Oh,
I mean,
wow.
musical venues is kind of what it is here in Louisville, for the past year or so.
I have a question I want to ask.
Sure.
You know, when I came here, as you were saying, there was a lot of open poetry mics, and now they just seem to have like all crashed and down at once. There's not as much as there used to be. Are you trying to do something about that, to change that, to get to get back, get more?
Well, when I hear of people that starting them in different places, like
will you start one?
well, I don't know about how to go about the process, but
that's what this podcast is about. On the spot.
Yeah, Emily Ibershoff, one of the Tin Whiskey Sisters, was trying to start one at
Local group.
At the Louisville Coffee Company over in what is it? J-Town.
Jefferson.
Yeah.
Bill.
No, Jeffersontown.
Jeffersontown, part of Louisville.
Yeah.
Don't forget Trevor's thing.
Oh yeah, and Trevor opened up his own coffee shop, Mick Quixote.
Yeah, I can't pronounce it too.
Yeah.
Mac Quixote.
Mac Quixote.
And
on every Monday night, he has a poetry gig there.
Yeah, by the Tim
which
Faulkner.
Collides with Diorio's, but
in the Portland area, the oldest area of Louisville.
But it's nice. I've read there a few times. It's really nice.
Yeah, and let's see. Also, someone calling himself Maxwell Sounds has been doing open mics in various locations that seem to be like once a month sort of thing.
Open Art Gallery on
Mark James.
on Floyd Street. Yeah, and
over near U of L.
And that what I like about that one, it's largely become a black open mic, and for the last time I was there, and it's just I love it, man. Poetry and spoken word.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Where is it?
It's across from the stadium at U of L. On the other side of Floyd Street.
That's okay.
Okay. Next question.
Okay. Well, hey man, maybe why don't you just read poetry? Read some of your poetry. I want to hear some.
Read some
poetry. Poetry.
Yeah.
Gaba gaba.
So regarding the poetry,
do the dirty one.
He's got double entendres too.
Oh man, does he?
Got this.
Just one specific one.
Yes, I know which one you're talking about.
Yeah, I know which one you're asking for too. But before I get to that, there are a couple others that I want to go ahead and read based on some of the ones that you read earlier in the earlier podcast. So what I want to explain here is that I do have 3 books available now. My first one is called Abundantly Clear, which I published in 2013. It's got 42 poems in it, and yes, that is kind of a Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy reference, for those of you who are wondering. An awesome series of books, too. I highly recommend reading them all. That's right. That's right. And my second book is Seasoned with Sentiment and Silliness, which was released on February 6th this year, the day before my birthday. And that one includes not only poetry, but also some notes about what inspired some of the poems, which is something that not a lot of artists among songwriters and poets actually do. So, but I figured that those were kind of important because, it does reflect a lot about the people and places that are close to my heart, hence the sentiment. And then the third book that's available online right now, but it's I don't have the printed copies of it yet. Those are coming.
Are you going to have a show like for that one, like you did with the other ones?
I might.
Poetry release?
Yeah, I might. But the title of the third one is Book of Small Wonders or Book of Small Poems of Things Wondered About, which is a haiku, and the book is entirely haiku. And that's kind of odd for me because usually I would only write one haiku like maybe once every 1 or 2 years, but back in April through June, I kind of had this span where I was writing haiku after haiku after haiku, and it's like, wow, I guess this is what my third book is supposed to be. So, I just got to go with the inspiration. So the first poem that I want to read, it's out of Abundantly Clear, my first book, and it kind of speaks to some of the things that Maree was talking about during her interview. My friend Jen Rose Fitzgerald of Jen Rose and the Kentucky Bootleggers, local band, she had posted some lyrics to a song on MySpace back in the day, and the song was called, I think it was called Childhood Scars. And there was a lyric in there about when our scars are brushed and we're exposed. And I left a comment to those lyrics, and that comment somehow in my mind just expanded and became this poem. It's called The Scar That's Not What We Are. The story is all too common. As we grow up, something happens for reasons we do not understand. Someone leaves, or hurtful words are said, or hurtful deeds are done, and our hearts feel marked by painful burning brand. It is said these brandings leave childhood scars that no one can visibly see, and almost everybody has some, at least to some degree. We may feel that they leave us ugly at the surface. We may think they penetrate to our core. And though we may be forever changed, time can heal, and we won't always be so sore. The slightest word or action may sometimes open wounds in ways that others do not understand. But it's important to remember that the ways we react are still under our command. When finally our scars are brushed and we are exposed, what do we do then? Could just push away and hurt, or invite someone in, remembering an intimate innocence we haven't known in who knows when. An anchor to remind us, to refocus our attention to this moment, to remind us that the past is no longer real, and therefore cannot fester and foment. Revelation of the scars may cause some to shrink away from the sight, but the scars cannot be seen for what they are until they are brought out into the light. While there may be many who undoubtedly will turn away, some can still see divine aspect behind imperfect human face. And with these true friends and lovers, we can heal by building trust in sentimental sacred space. Thank you.
Now the dirty one.
Okay.
Pressure.
Pressure builds, and you know what happens then.
Okay. And this one comes out of Seasoned with Sentiment and Silliness. I had to go ahead and publish it in this. So, what this comes from is the Sabrosa open mic that Divinity Rose used to host at Diamonds in St. Matthews, where Frankfurt Avenue turns into Shelbyville Road. And what happened was I had signed up for her open mic, and she's got this poem that she wrote called Dirty Little Writer. And so I guess it was as a joke or something, she called me up to the stage on my turn and called me a dirty little writer. And I was like, oh, so you want to go there, do you? And the very next day, I wrote this poem, and I was laughing the entire time. And the title of this poem is Rising to the Challenge. So, the dirty little writer called me a dirty little writer. I might not be so little, although little is my mother's maiden name. But I am a writer, and maybe I could be just as dirty, as my pen is standing erect upon my notebook, leaking its juicy ink down between the pages, making my thought it's able to smoothly slide inside you. So that when I stand upon the stage, spiritually naked before you, my breath becomes a cool, refreshing breeze that gently brushes and caresses the body of your soul. And it whispers, sweetly, quietly, confidently, plunging into the deepest, darkest depths of your crevices, to tickle and stimulate the organ between your ears, where it can go even deeper to touch your heart and cradle it with warmth, and carrying my words as seed to impregnate your fertile mind with inspiration, so that together we can create and give birth to miraculous wonders with which to build the world that we wish to see and know is possible. As we rest here in this moment, our lives intertwined, allow me to lovingly kiss the lid of your mind's eyes, so that you may see yourselves as beautiful as I see you. I may not be little like some, but maybe I could be just as dirty of a writer, although whoever said that affectionately sharing an act of pleasurable, sacred, intimate creation is supposed to be seen as dirty anyway?
You really came
Thank you.
alive reading that, Matthew, and I know you really have. Your delivery is really good.
Thank you.
But before we go into our round robin wrap up, I would like to say that I forgot what I was going to say.
Well, if you'd like to say it, then good thing you said it.
That is so weird. But anyway, maybe we should just go into our round robin wrap up. Then I'll think of it later.
As far as poets,
Mm-hmm.
who was the one poet that influenced you the most?
Good question.
The one that influenced me the most, the one who is kind of the co-writer of Who I've Become, Robin Bensinger. She's a local poet here in Louisville, and I met her at Unity of Louisville, and she's published a book of her own called Daydream, and she writes some very beautiful poems, and kind of a kindred spirit.
I remember what that was. So Dadu, I'll give you a shot in a second. But I remember what it was. It was a old-timey song by Clarence Ashley, recorded in the late 20s, early 30s, called "My Sweet Farm Girl." Before they censored everything, life was great in the 20s on film and. But anyway, that's for another time.
Oh, there's a time before things got censored.
My sweet farm girl. It's just full of. I'll send it to you later. Full of double entendres, full of double entendres, and it ends with the line, "She loves her daddy because he's long and hard."
Oh, wow!
What would you want to be remembered by if it wasn't just your poetry?
Wow. That is a very good question.
The hat, the color blue,
or perhaps just the legacy of friendship that's come together through the various open mics in the Louisville arts community. It's kind of an odd thing. When I was growing up in school, I was usually happy if I had just maybe one or two really good friends. I didn't really care about being popular at all. The popular kids just seemed, kind of cruel, and I just didn't want to have any part of that.
I had that experience too. Go ahead.
Yeah, but finding a Unity of Louisville, and then finding the Troubadours of Divine Bliss, and then having that gateway into the local creative arts scene, and then meeting not only songwriters and poets from Louisville, but also from all over the country coming through and performing. That's forged a lot of friendships that'll last for a long time to come.
Have you ever had a drive to become a musician? Usually your types become musicians as well,
Usually, but I don't know what it is. I took a few piano lessons
you work
when
in
I was
a piano
younger.
store,
Yeah. That's one of the things. I took a few lessons in piano when I was younger, and I work in a piano store. and my dad's a piano technician. But it's like I actually do have some talent towards being able to learn music, but when I was in college, I just let myself get too busy to stick with it.
But your passion was more with the spoken word than to become. I like that path. It's a different path.
And the thing is, I didn't even really get into. Well, I've had my hand in various types of creative writing for as long as I was able to pick up a pen, but I didn't really get into poetry until I started dating my ex-girlfriend back in 1999. And, the poetic talent just kind of outlived the relationship.
I want to close off this interview with something silly.
Okay.
Dedu, do you have something to say first?
Oh, no.
Okay. Karma? Well, okay. But, no, I want to close off this interview with something silly.
Okay.
Now, you can put it... We're good friends, so I can get away with this.
Okay.
And you can put it back on me. You can turn it back on me. I'm going to suggest what you should go to. Halloween's coming up in a month. And you should go to... I'm getting tongue-tied. Brought to you by Tongue-Tied.
You mean a Halloween party?
Yeah, you should go to a Halloween party and you tell me what I should go as. Inspector Gadget.
I was also thinking.
Yeah, I could see that. In fact, when I started wearing a hat, and in December, I've got a long blue coat, but my girlfriend at the time, she did sometimes compare me to Inspector Gadget, and I don't mind. That was one of my favorite cartoons growing up, and of course,
there's Dr. Claw. Dadu, you look like Dr. Claw. Inspector Gadget and Dr. Claw in the same room.
I didn't think that. Of course, you never saw Dr. Claw's face. You always just saw his hand. So. But
gloves.
Yeah. But Don Adams, God bless his soul. Yeah, he was a genius actor, and he's definitely missed. Nobody else can do really do justice to Maxwell Smart or Inspector Gadget since then.
Well, who do I look? Who did I go to as Halloween as? Zoinks? Something I don't know, but
Shaggy.
Yeah, Shaggy. Yeah, good suggestion.
Scooby Snacks.
There you go.
You might be surprised that I actually go as myself every Halloween.
He does.
Makes sense. I'm sure it does.
Yeah, I'm me. Yeah. I don't have to worry about getting an outfit. I'm ready already.
Yeah.
Well,
what about the time? What's her name? Went as you?
Oh, Pam Swisher. Yeah, that's right.
Went as him. I didn't see it. I missed it.
Yeah, there actually are photos on Facebook, and
And to someone in Papua New Guinea, who is Pam Swisher?
Pam kind of
she
took over the Church on the Rocks open mics when the Troubadours kind of retired from that.
We were at the Monkey Ranch.
Yes.
Yeah. And one night she came dressed as me, and
that was fun. I was there.
Yeah.
I wish I'd seen that.
And not only that, but one of our other regulars, Chris Fox, otherwise known as Chris Bliss, came as a
woman.
Yeah, she attended as a dominatrix.
Yes.
And,
right.
And Pam dressed as me, got whipped. Spanked, yes. And that was...
And David loves getting spanked.
Yeah, David Scott. But the thing is, watching Pam as me getting spanked by a dominatrix, that was weird.
Did that inspire you to do that in real life?
No. No.
No.
Well, we'll.
I was at Elvis once at Halloween.
We'll be right back in a second with our improv segment and our plugs all around. But okay, we'll just go right into it. I guess we're still on learning curves. But let's. You have Matthew and Mama Maree. Do you have any plugs? Do you want anything to advertise, or even if it's just yourself?
Well, I want Matthew to help me publish my book, my chapbook. Especially since I see this is Bard and Blue. You've got your own company now.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, basically, I'm
Please,
it, but yeah.
You've got to help me. Somebody's got to help me. It's got to happen.
I agree. I 1,000% agree. Do it now. It's a new moon. It's solidified.
Yes.
Sure.
And Nikki said she'd help, and it's got to happen. And I've had a lot happen to me recently, health-wise, and it's like put a wedge in my plans, you know.
Yeah.
So I need help. Help.
Anyway, any other plugs?
Well, aside from Alana's open mic at Diorio's on Monday, I'm not sure
and
what else to think of.
Trevor's thing on Monday.
Right,
and Trevor's.
First Monday of every month, by the way.
Oldest section of Louisville, yeah.
Oh, okay, so Trevor's not a weekly thing, it's just once a month?
It's the first Monday of every month, and it's on 15th and Portland Avenue.
Oh, yeah, and...
it's a really great place. It's an art gallery.
Right, yeah, Tim Faulkner.
Yeah,
Tim Faulkner.
And Sandy, you were saying something about Mark James's open art studio that has an open mic every second Sunday?
Yes.
Yeah. I still need to check that one out.
You do. It's worth it. I was there last spring. But you know, I need a girlfriend to plug. That's all I'll say on that.
Likewise.
Oh, talk about double entendre.
And networking.
Yes,
indeed.
I think it's time. I think that this is a perfect time to have our improv segment.
I need a girlfriend to plug.
Yeah.
Okay.
But why don't we? I think we'll Matthew and Mama Maree. Let's make a poem here.
Wow, spontaneous poem.
Who wants to start? It doesn't matter who.
It's been a long time since I've last done that sort of thing.
Just feed off each other's energy.
Let's see. Once was a New Yorker from Nantucket.
How many New Yorkers does it take to change a light bulb?
How many?
None of your fucking business.
Awesome.
I'm supposed to start.
Just whatever strikes you, improv.
A line
maybe
for
I.
you. Let's see.
I just gave a line, so.
Oh. Give it again, and we'll go.
Okay, once was a New Yorker from Nantucket. Or.
Is Nantucket in New York?
Oh. So it isn't. Or
I don't
maybe
know.
a New Yorker in Nantucket, rather, I guess.
All right.
Just visiting, traveling.
Well, this New Yorker's going home.
Okay,
Wednesday.
I'll start a line, and I won't, and I won't be part of the poem, but I'll start a line, then Matthew, then Mama Maree.
All right.
Open spaces, wide open fields, new moon, harmony.
Yeah. Grass green, sky blue. Trees grow.
Go with the flow.
Go with the flow. I'm getting on a great big airplane on Wednesday, flying to New York to see grass green and sky blue and get wet in the ocean and hope that I stay healthy for that week.
Amen. And that the taxi drivers aren't too rude.
Well, that was great.
I'm driving my own.
And awkward.
That dude is great at mentioning the elephants in the room.
Yeah. Got my Captain Obvious hat on.
Mr. Obvious. But anyway, that's this episode of From Louisville to the World. We'll catch you next time.
El tremendo y el Boris. Ella está clara de que ella sofoca con ese caminadito y ese lindo cuerpecito.
That was fun,
Absolutely.
fun.